Yeah, stream is ready to go live. Okay, hey everybody. How's everybody doing? Good. Welcome to IS Academy. Peter isn't here to kick us off, so I get to do that. I'm Alex. I'm talking about JavaScript today. Does anybody have any questions before we get started? Cool. If you have any questions while we're going through things, or if I'm going too fast, go ahead, stop me. I want to make sure that you guys get as much out of this as possible. First things first, a little bit about me. Let me actually be ready. There. This is me. I'm in front of a dinosaur. I am not the dinosaur. I'm the dude with the glasses. That's my wife. She is not the dinosaur. She's the lovely lady sitting next to me. And we are super happy. Yeah, I'm in the Masters of Information Systems program. I graduated in April. So if any of you are interested in information systems as a major or in the Masters of Information Systems, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that after the session. Cool, cool. Here's what we're going to be talking about today. We're talking about JavaScript. Who's ever heard of JavaScript? Raise your hand high in the air. Cool. Who's heard of Java? Raise your hand high in the air. Who thinks that JavaScript and Java are the same thing? My grandma, but they're not. JavaScript and Java are not the same thing. Java is something you run on like a server or something. JavaScript is something you can run literally everywhere. It's kind of like the difference between car and carpet. Okay. Anyway, hopefully we'll make something cool today. That's my objective. I want to go a little bit fast so that we can get to making something cool, but if not, I will give you all the resources that you need in order to make something cool yourself. You're going to be doing a lot of teaching yourself because in an hour session like this, there's no way that I can possibly teach you everything about JavaScript. It's way more complicated than that, like all programming is. A lot of it is going to be you digging in, trying things out, beating your head against the wall, things not working, and then eventually it'll click. But it'll only click for one thing, and then you'll just keep on going, and it'll continue to click. You got to keep at it, though. You got to keep trying, because otherwise you won't learn anything. But today, I really want to have a lot of good interaction. So ask your questions. If you have any comments, throw those out. And we'll be using our computers a lot. I hope that you guys will be able to follow along with me as I do some of these exercises learning JavaScript. Okay? Here's what not to expect, though. Like I said, it's going to take a while for you to figure everything out. I'm not going to be able to just download all of JavaScript into your brain and make it explode like this. You're going to have to work at it. Okay? Cool. Really quick, how many of you are in the IS program right now? Raise your hand high in the air. How many of you are interested in the IS program? Raise your hand high in the air. Cool, cool, cool. How many of you know HTML? Raise your hand high in the air. How many of you know CSS? Raise your hand high in the air. Okay, cool. So JavaScript is something that I think is HTML and CSS are the two languages that you use to build websites. JavaScript is another language that you can use to add interactivity to your website. It's kind of like, shoot, I was supposed to switch these slides. I'll switch around. With making websites, you have HTML, which is the structure. It's kind of like the skeleton. You have CSS, which is what it looks like, the presentation, the appearance. And then JavaScript is what makes it have interactivity. It makes it dynamic so you can do all kinds of cool things with it. Okay? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. But remember that it's only one piece of a greater whole. So if you don't know where to start, make sure that you're really proficient in HTML and CSS and you understand how those two pieces work together. And then today we'll get into a little bit of how you can use JavaScript with your HTML and CSS. Cool? Okay, now we'll go back to this slide. JavaScript is really, really big. There are a lot of different pieces to it. Tonight we're going to be talking about just that little circle there in the middle. This is the very basic basics, the stuff that will get you going, get the ball rolling with everything else. And then you have some more core stuff that's like part of JavaScript itself. You have something called ES6, which is the latest and greatest features of JavaScript that makes it a little bit easier to do certain things. ES6 was actually, it hasn't been around for very long. It was only released in 2015. And they're continually making updates and improvements to JavaScript, so it's continually getting better. But the old stuff still works. So I'm going to be teaching you just basic JavaScript tonight. Then outside of that, you have the web APIs, which is the stuff that lets you interact with websites and web browsers and that sort of thing. And there's a whole bunch of stuff involved in that, which I'm not even going to touch tonight very much. And then finally, I put some the 3 most popular JavaScript libraries out there. How many of you have heard of React, Angular, or Vue? If you see any job posting for a front-end web developer, I guarantee it's going to have one of those 3 words in the job description, because that's what companies are using nowadays to build their websites. Websites are getting much more complicated, much more complex, and using just regular JavaScript can be a little bit of a hassle. So these libraries exist to make it easier to use JavaScript to make really rich, fancy experiences on the web for users. I hope that someday you'll be able to learn one of these front-end libraries, but tonight we're just going to talk about JavaScript itself. Okay, cool. What is JavaScript? It's a language. It's a scripting language, hence the script. You type it out with code. It has all kinds of things like variables and loops and conditionals and that sort of stuff, which we'll talk about more in a bit. But it allows you to have interactive and dynamic pages on the internet. So filling out forms and doing stuff with user input, having complex animations where things, I don't know, do really fancy things. I could show you an example if you really wanted me to. One of the big things for me, the reason why I love JavaScript, is it lets me load remote data. So if I want to grab data from this website over here and this website over here and this website over here and combine them together on my website, I can do that really easily just with JavaScript. And then finally, interaction, the user being able to do stuff on the web page and having it actually respond. What questions do you have so far? Cool. You know, I was going to just jump in and have us do some stuff, but I want to do a quick demo really quick. So let me, hang on a sec. Sure, why not? Oh, that was wrong. Hopefully that wasn't so bad. And it's not even loading. You're the worst. Give me just a sec, guys. It's being janky. Anybody ever heard of 3JS before? So, believe it or not, with JavaScript, you can actually have 3D rendering engine in your web browser. That's not what I wanted. So you can make these really fun little things. This is all made with JavaScript. I can actually pull open the code and show it to you. But look at that guy. Isn't he cute? He's just floating there. I can click on any of these guys and open them up. And it's just this 3D environment that you can use in JavaScript. And this person just made these fun little animations for these things. Anyway, let's look at the code for this, just for kicks. Make that a little bit bigger if I can. There we go. So here's the HTML. You can see all of the HTML right here. It looks like they've got this thing that has a little bit of the UI there, but all of this stuff here in the middle is actually controlled with JavaScript. And I can probably, nope, that's not it. Let's see if I can find it. It's probably this thing right here. It's probably going to be super mungy. That's not, oh, no. Yeah, no, we're not going to be looking at this one, I'm afraid. Or maybe we can. So, has anybody ever seen this DevTools window before? This is really handy. Every web browser has what's called DevTools, which lets you dive into the web code itself for whatever website you're on. So I can actually go to any website that I want and see what makes that website work. So I can even go to like Facebook or something and be like, ooh, let's see how Facebook works. Pull open this, and it's like, oh no, stop. Facebook doesn't want me to use this because I can actually use this to ruin my Facebook account. So be careful with it. I mean, don't be terribly careful. Just if somebody tells you to paste something in here, like they say here, it says, oh, don't copy and paste things in here because you can do that to hack your account. That's bad. But I can open that up really easily just by right-clicking on the page and choosing this inspect. That's what it is in Chrome and Firefox. And it pulls this up, and I can see all of the HTML elements here, and I can see the CSS over here. And if I go to sources, I can see all the JavaScript stuff. Okay. Okay. Anyway, that's fun. This is just a fun little demo. You can see this, and I don't know if they have the code available, but maybe. Who knows? Let's actually dive in and learn some JavaScript. So, if everybody wants to go to this learnjs.org, it's learn-js.org. This is a really cool website that I found. It actually has several different things that you can use to learn stuff. And the way that it works is it gives you this table of contents with all these different things that you can do. And then down here, it gives you a code editor that you can type JavaScript code in, click this run button, and then it puts it in the output. And you can see immediately what your JavaScript code is doing. And it gives you some exercises that you can do to practice things. So let's start out. Is anybody not there? Everybody's there? Awesome. Let's go to the hello world. And we're going to type our very first JavaScript. This is actually code today. So Barack Obama did Hour of Code 2014. And right here, what program did Obama write to kick off Hour of Code? And, oh shoot, I thought he did a console log, but he did move forward. But it was in JavaScript. So Barack Obama wrote JavaScript for the day of code in 2014. You're going to write code in JavaScript too. You ready for this? So we're going to do an exercise to print out to the console the sentence, hello world. Let's see how that's done. I click start exercise. Down here, gives me this code. It's already pre-filled. It says console.log, and then open parenthesis, and then goodbye world, and then close parenthesis, and then the semicolon. I'd want to ask you guys, how many of you have ever seen JavaScript before? Raise your hand in the air. Okay, so a couple of you. Those of you that have, but especially those of you that haven't, what do you see here? Tell me what you see, and then we'll talk about it. Just one line of JavaScript. Parentheses. Yeah, we've got parentheses. The parentheses are around this goodbye world, and it looks like the goodbye world is in quotes too. So parentheses like keep something separate from everything else for some reason. We'll figure out that reason in just a second. What else do you see? A log, yeah. I would call that a command. The command's name is log. And it's basically saying we have this console thing. The console is where all of the text is going to be output to. It's this thing over here. And the console has a command attached to it called log. And if we give something to that command, log, like goodbye world in these quotes, then what it's going to do is take that and log it to the console. It's going to throw it into the console. So I click run, and bloop, it says goodbye world. Hang on a second, it says that I need to make it so that it says hello world. So how about I change this so it says hello world? You can do this too. I'll do that. I'll click run. It says hello world. Yay! Correct. Click OK to move to the next chapter. Sorry if this is going really slow. If you're like completely dying, I can go faster. Okay. One thing that all programming languages have, for the most part, I can't think of a programming language that doesn't have something like this. You have to have buckets in order to put information, because sometimes you need information to stick around for a little bit and to pass it around to transform it into stuff. And you got to have a place to hold it while it's in process. We call those variables. In JavaScript, a variable is defined with the keyword var and the name of the variable. So here we can see three different variables. We have my number, and my string, and my boolean, and we use the single equals, just one equals, to put stuff into the variable. Okay? So here I'm putting the number 3 into the variable. Here I'm putting a string. Okay? Does anybody not know what I mean when I say a string? String is just text. So in JavaScript, you can define a string in 3 ways: with single quotes, with double quotes, or with a character called backtick. So I can say double quotes, single quotes here, or backtick. All of these are strings. Although it doesn't recognize this properly with the formatting, but whatever. Okay? Yeah, so here it gives a little bit of explanation. A number can be either floating point or an integer. So an integer is a number which doesn't have a decimal. Floating point does have a decimal. In JavaScript, they're exactly the same. You can switch between them however you want, doesn't matter. And then Boolean values are values that are either true or false. No in between, just true or false. Okay? There are 2 other types. So these things, a number, a string, and a Boolean, those are called types. And that's just a way of saying what kind of data it is. There are 2 other types that we can define in JavaScript. One of those is called an array, and the other is an object. An array is just a list of anything. I can put anything into an array, and it just lists it out one thing after the other. So I could have a list of fruit, like apple or banana or pear. Or I could have a list of everybody's birthday, so 25, 24, or age, not birthday, but whatever, you know what I mean. I'm not going to guess what your birthdays are, but we could put all of those into a list. An object, on the other hand, is something that lets you give a name to all of the stuff that you put into it. So it's something you put stuff into, but instead of just putting into a list, I can give each part of whatever I put into it a name. So, for example, if I have a car, and I have an object that represents that car, I could have a key, that's the name that I give it. Key is make, and that'll be a string. And for mine, it'd be a Nissan. Model is a Sentra, that's another string. The year is 2017, that's a number. Bought used, true, because yes, I did buy it used. Don't judge me. So, yeah. That's arrays and objects, and then strings, numbers, and booleans. What questions do you have about all of this? Cool. Yeah. So in order to use a variable, you have to define it. This explains that if you define a variable without putting anything into it, it freaks out at you. It uses this weird undefined type, which just says, hey, you haven't put anything into this variable. I have no idea what it's supposed to be. And then there's another special variable called null, which literally means nothing. So if you wanted to put nothing into a variable, you put null into it, it means nothing. It's sometimes handy to do that. But if I were you, I would avoid undefined as much as possible and only use null when you need to. Yes? When would you use null? If you ever... Gosh, that's a good question. If you ever needed to make it so that something wasn't anymore. Okay? So, suppose, I can't think of a good example right now. I'll look up an example later, and I'll get that for you, okay? Yeah, cool. So, we need to do this exercise now, and the exercise down here says that we need to create a number called myNumber and put the number 4 into it, a string called myString and put the sentence variables are great, and a boolean called myBoolean, which contains the value false. I'm going to do that. You guys should do that too. Let's see. So I need to define my variable. Can I show you guys something cool? There are actually 3 ways to define variables, and the way that it shows here using var is actually the old way of doing it. The 2 new ways are better for reasons that I'm not going to dive into today, but I just want you guys to know that there exists more things. So I'm going to define it in 3 different ways. Starting with var, myNumber, gotta give it, oh yeah, I can zoom in, equals 4, right? That's what it needs to be, 4. Var, oh, at the end of your lines you can put semicolons. You don't have to. In some cases, you do have to use semicolons. So it's always a good practice to just put semicolons at the end of your lines. My string, oh, I'm not doing var though. I'm going to do let. Let is very similar to var. It's a variable that I name my string, and then I can give it its name. But if I made a mistake, I can reassign the variable that I used with let by just saying the name of the variable again, my string equals variables are great, and it lets me do that. You could do the same thing with var. So if I were to make a mistake there and then be like, oh wait, my number equals 4, or if I wanted to do some kind of operation, like suppose my number is 3 and I wanted my number to actually equal 1 plus my number, add my number to itself. I could do that and that would work just fine. You can reassign variables, you can reassign let variables. The only one that you can't reassign is const. It stands for constant. Constants, if you try and reassign it, JavaScript will freak out at you. So I can do my boolean equals false. And then I click run, and hey, it worked. What questions do you have? Hey. Next. Hey, we get to talk about arrays more. So, you can easily define an array with angle brackets. You can make an empty array by just doing the variable name equals empty angle brackets, just open angle bracket, close angle bracket. That way, for your perspective. But if I wanted to put stuff in it to begin with, I can do it like this with whatever stuff I'm putting in it and then commas between them. Or I can do the same thing here with a new array. This way is just a little bit cleaner. I like it better. So that gives me an array with the numbers 1, 2, and 3 in it. Here's a funky thing about JavaScript, and actually most programming languages, is the order of things. If I were to ask you which, let me do it differently. I'm going to open this up and I'm going to go var my array equals A, B, C. Okay, and then if I were to ask you which item is in the second slot in this array, what would your answer be? So you would say B. The way that you get something out of an array is by a specific item is by saying the name of the array, my array, and then you use angle brackets, and then you put the number of which slot you want to pull out of. So if I were to put 2, you think it's going to be B. Anybody else got any guesses? C. Yeah. The correct answer is C. The reason why is because arrays in JavaScript operate with what's called a 0th index. So the first item in the array is actually grabbed with 0. So I'm sorry, this is me taking advantage of the fact that you don't know that. I apologize. But now you know, and knowing is half the battle. So if I do my array 0, it gives me A. And if I do my array -1, it freaks out and says undefined. There's no -1, you silly goose. Okay? So that's what we were talking about here. That's called addressing, or you can grab whatever item you want in the array just with the number. Okay? And then, yeah, you can put stuff into arrays. So I have my array here, and suppose that I wanted to change what the B letter was. I could do my array. What index is that? What slot is it? 1, that's right. And then I can change that to be like Z. And then, let me console log my array. And boom, it has AZC. Woot. That's what it shows here. And then if I wanted to put more stuff into my array, if I wanted to take my array and shove stuff onto the end of it, it has a couple of commands, what are called methods, that I can do on it. So let's do some of these methods on my array. So suppose that I wanted to add the next 2 letters of the alphabet. We know what those are. I can do my array, and if I just want to shove that onto the end of the array, I have 2 options. One is I could find out how long my array is. I can do that by doing array.length, like this. Let me console log that so you can see it. My array.length, bloop, and it's 3. Cool. So if I wanted to put something onto the end of the array, since that would be the third, since it goes 0, 1, 2, and then the third item, which is how long the array is, so handy how that works out, would be where I'd put my item. So I could say var last item equals my array.length, and then I could say my array, watch this, last item. I can put a variable in there to indicate the index that I want to put something in, and I could say that equals D. And then, need to console.log my array. Cool, that works. An easier way of doing it though, I'll do it with E, is by using this method, this command on the array. So I can do my array dot push. What this does is it takes whatever thing I put inside of the parentheses, so I open up the parentheses, and I put E, I close the parentheses, it's going to push E onto the end of the array. Oh, I want to console log that again. Push, and then, ta-da, there's an E at the end of my array. Suppose I wanted to get rid of that E, pop it off, I could do my array.pop. Oh, and I suppose it's just going to pop off whatever the last item is, so I don't have to put anything in there. I just have to say, this is a command, run the command with the open and close parentheses, but I'm not passing anything to it. And then, you want me to turn off the light? Would that make it easier? I want to turn off the light. Okay, I'm back. And then I click run, and then it popped off. It's gone. Cool. So, what questions do you have? Everybody with me? Cool. Let's do this exercise really quick. It says, change my array to contain the variables. Awesome. So I just need to put stuff inside of it. It looks like it's asking me to put these three things into this array. So that's one of the interesting things about JavaScript. In most languages, your arrays have to have the same type of stuff in it. So it has to be an array of strings, or an array of numbers, or an array of booleans, or whatever. In JavaScript, I can mix and match all I want. I would encourage you, as you write programs in JavaScript, to try and keep that rule where you only use the same type of things in an array. That way you might not, you won't get surprised if the types are different. Sometimes, though, it is helpful. I'll leave that up to you. You're the programmer, not me. So I can put that in there, and then I put in another one, 42, and just for kicks, let me do my array.push to put this last item in, and then close that off and hit run. Doop. And hey, it worked. I'm moving on. Anybody objections? Cool. This already covers push and pop. Great. Well, you guys already know how to do that, so I'm not going to cover that. Shift and unshift are exactly the same as push and pop, except shift shoves it onto the onto the front of the array instead of the end of the array, like pop. So pop puts it on the end of the array, shift puts it on the front of the array, and then unshift takes it off the front of the array. But other than that, it works exactly the same. I'm just going to skip this one. You don't need to worry about that. Cool. We've got some operators here. So you can do math in JavaScript. That's a lot of what you do in programming is math. So we've got equals, which sets variables to a thing. We've got plus, which adds two numbers together. Plus also adds strings together. So watch this. If I do console.log 1 plus 2, or 5, okay, I'm really good at typing, that's 6. If I do console.log 1 plus, or hello, and there, let me make sure there's a plus in there. It's going to take those two strings and add them together. Nifty. There's actually some really funny stuff that you can do in JavaScript with adding stuff together. Like if I take console.log and add, what if I were to add a string like hi and a number like 5? That would just turn it into a string, high 5. What if I were to do an array plus an array? Oh, I think I broke it. I can do an array plus array here. Go away. So this is a JavaScript environment that I'm running in my terminal, and I can do array plus array, and it's empty string. Okay, so that's why you can't see anything, because it's an empty string, which totally makes sense. And then an object plus an object, is obviously the string object, 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 object. And then if I do an array plus an object, then I get same thing. If I do an object plus an array, it should be this thing right here, right? That totally makes sense. No, it's 0, okay? Like, there are a lot of things in JavaScript that are weird. If you dig in and look at why specifically is JavaScript doing it this way, you'll find that it actually does make sense. It's doing exactly what it's supposed to do, which is one of the problems with computers. They always do exactly what they're supposed to do. I have one more thing to show you, and then I'm done with this silly thing. An array minus an object is obviously not a number, which totally makes sense. But an object minus an array is -0, which doesn't make any sense. How is it possible that 0 can be negative? I thought you would enjoy that. I hope you did. So, lesson here, JavaScript is a little bit weird. And if you look at why it's weird, it makes sense. But until you do, it's just weird. That's why I encourage you, if at all possible, to never use plus or minus or any of the operators with two different types. Always make sure that your types are the same before using operators on them. It'll make your life as a JavaScript developer much easier. Okay? Cool. Just a little lesson to throw out there. Minus times divide. Divide is slash, times is the asterisk. This is modulus, which gives you the remainder, which can be really handy. If I wanted to figure out like if a number was even or odd, I could do blah, 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 mod 2, and then I suppose I have to console log this. And if the remainder is 0, then it's even. If the remainder is 1, then it's odd. Bloop, it's 0. But if I wanted to figure out if it was a factor of like that number, oh, no, it's not a factor of that number. Okay, life is good. This lets you set numbers, which is boring. I'm not going to worry about that. You can look at that yourself. Then there's this math object, which gives me all kinds of superpowers. Like I have the absolute value, or an exponent, or, oh, e. No, e to the power of a number. And then this is just doing power for math. Yeah, so raised to the power. This floors it, which if I take our console.log math.floor, this number, then that's just going to be 9,287. And if I do math ceil, then it's going to round it up. So that floor rounds it down, and then ceil rounds it up, and then I can just round it regularly, which in this case will round it down. And then math.random just gives me a random number between 0 and 1, which is awesome to have around if you just want to, I don't know, have some screwy number doing something. Cool. I'm going to skip this exercise too. I just want to move on, do some more interesting things. I can't remember all the stuff that we have to do. I think once we do conditionals, then we can move on to something more interesting. Okay. Cool. Conditionals, in a lot of languages, they exist in a lot of languages, they let you define what your code, what your program does based on a set of circumstances. So in this case, I have this program. I'm just going to click this execute code button, and it's going to ask me, are you John Smith, using this lovely little confirm dialog, and I can say yes or no. I am not John Smith, and so I'm going to click cancel. Read this code and tell me, if I say cancel, what do you think is going to happen based on this code? It's going to ask me, then what is your name? And, well, then what is your name? There it is. Yep, you're right. The reason why is because confirm is, it asks that question and gives me the OK button and the cancel button. And if I were to console log that, you'll see that it actually gives me back something when I'm done running this confirm. So I hit run, and then if I hit OK, it gives me back true, and if I hit cancel, then it gives me back false. You might be wondering, why is there a special type for just true and false? Why don't we just have a string or a number for true and false? Why is it a special type? Because that type is used in these conditionals to define whether the conditional actually happens or not. So in this case, this returns true or false. If it's true, then it does whatever's inside of this first bracket here, okay? So I have my if keyword, I have an open parenthesis and a closed parenthesis and everything in there. If it's true, it does whatever is inside of the brackets, okay? And then I have this else thing here, okay? So check this out. I don't actually have to have this else. I can just run this, and if I hit OK, then it says, oh, hello, John, how are you? And if I hit cancel, then it does nothing. What else does is it lets me handle the opposite case. So in the event that this is actually false, instead of being true, then I can have this else that does the thing that it does. So now, if it's false, then it prints that, okay? That's how conditionals work. What questions do you have? Cool. Yeah, so we need to decide if something is equal to something else. We can't just go, let me start here. We'll do var 42 equals, well, num equals 42. There's my number. I'm going to say num equals 42. We can't do that. Why can't I do that to see if number equals 42? Or better yet, I'll make that like 32. It sets it equal to 32. So if I do console.log num here, bloop, this console.log just gives me 32, the number that I'm setting it to. This gives me what num is actually, which is now 32. Not helpful. If I want to see if something is equal to something else, I have to use more than one equals. This is telling me to use two equals. I do that, and it says, oh, false, because 42 does not equal 32. Okay? I'm going to give you another piece of sage JavaScript advice. If I were you, I would never, ever use just two equals. Two equals? Boring. Three equals is where it's at. I want to use three equals to check this. And trust me, it works, okay? I'm not just joking with you. There is a difference between two equals and three equals, which I'm going to tell you right now. Suppose I have our string equals 42. The number 42, but instead of being a number, it's a string. And if I come here and say string equals 42, that should be true, right? It is true, actually. But they're two different types. This right here, you can see by the colors, but since it's not in quotations, it's not a string, it's a number. This, however, is a string. It's an entirely different type. So I can say string equals 42. And what this is going to do, it's not only going to compare the value to see if the values are the same, but it's also going to compare the type. In this case, the first one will be true because, yes, 42 is equal to 42, even though one is a string and one is a number. But in this case, it's going to be false because they're two different types. Boom. Okay? Makes sense? Why is this handy? Well, because sometimes when you're comparing types, it can get a little bit weird. Like, what if I were to do 0 equals false? Is that true or false? It's true. Yep, weird, huh? What if I were to do undefined equals false? That's true. Oh, that's false. Okay, so undefined is equal to, I thought it would be true. I was wrong. See, it's weird. It gets you. Null, however, is also equal to false. But 0 is not equal to false. So undefined and null are not equal to false. 0 is equal to false. And empty string is also equal to false. But a string with a space in it is... What? A string with a space in it is equal to false? What about... What? But if I were to put like just a single letter somewhere in the middle of this, now it's not equal to false, okay? So it's weird, guys, it's weird. I mean, there are reasons why it does this, but just don't go there. Like, unless you really know what you're doing, which if you're just learning JavaScript, you don't, which is why if I were you, I would always just use equals, because then you're not going to have... Oh, hang on. I'm confusing myself. Of course, yeah, that is not equal to false. Okay, I was right. Yeah. I'm sorry, guys. I get confused. Obviously, if I get confused, then you could get confused, and I don't want you to get confused, so just use triple equals all the time. Oh, no, I was right. It's the triple equals. Weird. Okay, I'm going to keep going now. I'm totally losing myself, which is bad. You can also use inequality, so I can say greater than or equal to. So just for fun, I'm going to say that this is greater than false, which is false. But it's also not less than false. But it's equal to false, which is, I mean, okay, that's weird. Let's do something that actually makes sense. 42 is greater than 32. This is true. 42 is less than 32. This is false. Or if I do 42 is less than or equal to 42, then that's true. But if it's just less than, then it's false because it's not equal to. Make sense? So you can do greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, less than or equal to. All of that's available to you. Cool. One more thing. You can actually chain expressions together to compare multiple things at the same time. You have two operators that you can use for that. One of them is the AND operator, which is two ampersands, and. So I could say 42 is equal to 42, and 42 is equal to, 42. Ta-da! And then this is going to be true. But if I change this to be 41, then it's not going to be true. Even though this side is true, this side is not true, and since I'm joining them together with AND, 42 being equal to 42 and 42 being equal to 41 is not true. Because not both of them are true. But if I wanted to say one or the other, I could use the OR operator, which is two bars. If you don't know where the bar is, it's right above your return key over on the right side there. There it is. And that's equal to true because one or the other is true. But if both of them were false, then no go. What questions do you have? Awesome, let's do something fun. We've got 20 minutes. I hope that we have enough time. Um, There's this super awesome guy. His name is Wes Boss. That's literally his name, Boss. And he made this free JavaScript practice shindig. Totally free, $0.99 or 000. It's totally zero. And it's a video series that he's done with all of these different things that you can do for one day of a month. So, December's coming up. You could do this during the month of December, where you pick one of these activities, or you go one by one, and use it to practice JavaScript, to get better at JavaScript. Some of them have you build a little project. Some of them have you just practice with actual JavaScript code. So this has you do stuff with arrays. This one lets you mess around with your webcam, which is pretty cool. This one, I mean, there's all kinds of cool stuff. Here's the best part. Where is it? It's somewhere. I'm just going to Google it. JavaScript 30 GitHub. How many of you have ever heard of GitHub? Raise your hand high in the air. Cool. GitHub is really cool. It's a place where people can put code on the internet for other people to grab. It's commonly used for open source development, where a lot of people contribute to the same project, and it's all open and free and really awesome. And Wes Boss put his JavaScript 30 code on GitHub. So here's the way that it works. You've got all of these projects, 1 through 30, and then I can open up any of these projects, and it gives me all of the stuff that I need for it. So this first one is a JavaScript drum kit. So I use my keyboard to type out sounds for drums. It gives me all of the sounds right here. That's awesome. It gives me all of the CSS styles right here. That's awesome. It gives me a start HTML file, which gives me all of the HTML I need, so I don't need to worry about HTML or CSS. That's awesome. All I have to worry about is JavaScript. And then he gives me the finished thing, so if I get really lost, I can come here and say, okay, this is how we can do that. Awesome. So, who wants to make a JavaScript drum kit? Go to this URL up here. I will not do that. It's github.com/wesboss, WESBOS/JavaScript30. If I were you, I'd just Google GitHub JavaScript 30, and then you'll find it. And then just click this clone or download button and download the zip. That gets downloaded to your downloads directory, which I've already done, so I don't know why I'm downloading this again. No, I deleted it. Just kidding. And we'll open that up. Yep. And how many of you do not have a code editor on your computer? Raise your hand high in the air. Cool. Can I give a recommendation? Don't use Notepad or TextEdit, because that would just be really hard. There are really powerful code editors out there that are available for free that give you all kinds of superpowers that don't come with regular Notepad or TextEdit. The one that I use is called Visual Studio Code, and it is super awesome. Observe, I have opened up the JavaScript 30 project, and I have all of the folders over here, and I can open them up and see all of the files. I can browse around here, and I can see that JavaScript drum kit start right here, and there it is. This has that fancy syntax highlighting, which is pretty cool. And it can tell me if I do something wrong in my JavaScript. So right here in my script tag, I can do junk like this, and it underlines it and says, oh, that's, oh, let me turn off my spell checker. I have a spell checker. I'm going to just disable that, because it gets in the way. I just barely got it, and I don't necessarily like it. But let's see. Yeah, gonna tell me what's wrong? Dang it, it's not. Oh, there it goes. It's telling me, oh no, there's something wrong with this code. Obviously, because I just kind of lunged on it. Okay. So yeah, let's open this up really quick. I'm gonna come over here. Am I going too fast for everybody's? Do you guys just want to watch me, or do you want to follow along? Who wants to follow along? Raise your hand high in the air. Okay, awesome. I'm just gonna jam then. If I go too fast, let me know. I'm going to click this Reveal in Finder. I just right-clicked on this and choose Reveal in Finder, and that's going to open it up in my other screen over here. So let me pull that up. And I'm going to open this web page in Chrome just so that we can see what it looks like. Okay, awesome. So we've got all of these things here, and they're connected to keys, and so I can not really do anything. Let's see what it's supposed to look like when we're done. Sorry if this is really dang freaking loud when I'm jamming on it. Yeah. Can I click? I can't click, so that'd be kind of cool if I could make it so I could click too. But for right now, we'll just deal with the keys. So there's the snare there. I should have Crystal come up here and do her events rap while I do the beatbox. Do you want to do that? Okay. She's not gonna. She's got a rap that she does about events, and we're actually going to be dealing with events because we need to capture some information about the keys that are put down that I press on my keyboard. Anytime I press a key, it fires what's called an event, and I can listen for those events using JavaScript. So let's do that really quick. First, let's get a little bit of ground taken care of. When I'm working in a web browser, there are a couple of things that the web browser provides for me that let me access stuff in the web browser, okay? One of those things is called the document. I can actually open up my DevTools. Remember, I can open the DevTools by right-clicking and clicking Inspect. Nope, DevTools. And I have my JavaScript console right here. I can hit the Escape key and it pulls up this console and I can type JavaScript right there. So let me type document and you'll see what I have here. This is the document. The document is the entire web page. Cool. And it has all of the HTML and stuff in it. Cool. I can actually access all of this in JavaScript. So I can do document.body. Body. And this gives me the body, which is the stuff inside of the body in the HTML. If you know HTML, you know what I'm talking about. And I can actually put stuff into the body. Inner text equals blah. And hey, now all of my body has been replaced with blah somewhere. I can't see it because of this weird background image. There's blah, just blah. Okay, but that's not what I want. What I want is JavaScript. No. What I want is to capture those events. So let me do that. I can add events to different parts of the web page. So let me do that down here in my script tag. This in HTML, this is how you write JavaScript. You use it a script tag, and you write the JavaScript in between it, or you can reference a separate file using the src attribute on there. But I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is come here and just write my JavaScript right in here. And I need to capture events for keys that are pressed. So I will do that on my document. The document has a method on it called addEventListener. And the event listener lets me listen for events. It takes two pieces of input. First is the name of the event. And here it actually gives me all of the different events that I can do. This is why having a code editor like VS Code is really awesome. The one that I'm looking for is key down. So when I press the key down, it's going to fire this event. The next is what's called a function. A function is a definition of some code that I can run multiple times. It basically is like a recipe, and instead of having to write the same code every time, I just call that recipe. That's what I'm doing here. I'm going to be creating a recipe that's going to run every time the key down event is fired. So I define the function with function, and then I have to have open parentheses, and this is where the event passes some data to me in what's called the event object. I can actually name this whatever I want. This is just becoming a variable, but I'm going to call it event so that we know what it is. And let's see what's inside of it. Console.log event. And now, if I reload this and press my keys, nothing happens. But I'm console logging it, so I should be able to open this up and see in the console all of these keyboard events. Cool. Everybody following along so far? Awesome. Let me open up one of these keyboard events, and we can see that the key gives me all kinds of stuff. I have a code, tells me the code is key I, so I must have pressed the I key. Let's see, there's a bunch of other stuff here. It says the key is dead. Weird. It gives me the key code here. That looks interesting, because look over here. I have all of these audio things, and the audio things have this data key. So maybe I can do something with that and with the key code over here. So let me do that. I'm going to grab the key code out of this event. I can grab any of the items in an object. So you see this event is an object, and it has all of these things in it that are named. And I can grab those using what's called dot notation. I just say, I'm going to use let, or no, I'm going to use const. Const defines a variable, but I'm not going to change it ever. And I'm going to say my key code equals event dot key code. Cool. Now my key code is going to be in here. Now I want to play this audio thing. I should see if it's possible to play it. So let me grab one of these audio things. Let me show you how you can grab elements in JavaScript here in the console. So I'm going to use a special method, a function, a command on the, there's all kinds of ways to say things. I'm sorry if I use too many. Document dot query selector. If you've done CSS, you know what a selector is. It's something that grabs an element on the page. So I'm going to grab one of those audio elements, and I'm going to actually put this into a variable. So let my audio equal that. Okay, now I can do my audio. And the nice thing about the console is I don't have to do console.log everything. I can just type it out and it automatically logs it to the console. Okay, so let's see what we have on here. Let's see if I can do something to this to make it play. Notice I just put the dot here, and in my DevTools, it gives me all of the different things I can do on it, which is awesome. Hey, check it out. Play. Boom. That's, dang it. I can't just hit dot play because it's a function, and I can't just grab the function. I have to call the function using the parentheses. So let me do that. I'll call the function with the parentheses, and what? It just played. So now I know how to play that audio file. I just do dot play. Cool. But how do I get the specific audio file for the key? Well, actually, there's a fancy selector that you can use in CSS for attributes. Okay, this right here, this data-key, that's in HTML, that's called an attribute, and I can select that using CSS. If I can select it with CSS, that means I can grab it with document.querySelector. So let me do document.querySelector. Here's the way that that selector works. I have to put everything in quotes, and then I do open bracket, and then I always just close everything before I get too far because I don't want to worry about closing it later. And then I put the name of the attribute, data-key equals, and then whatever the stuff inside the attribute is. So I'll say 65. And oh, it says it's not a valid selector. Hang on a sec. Let me try that again. I'm going to change it to single quotes because inside of here I want to use double quotes. And if I were to try doing double quotes, it would unquote it and then requote it around my 65 and it'd be messy. There, I got it. I think we know what to do now, right? If I want to get the audio file to play, the audio element that's already here on the page, all I have to do is create this selector. So const selector equals, single quotes, data key equals, open my quote, and then I'm going to do plus, and then the key code, because that's the thing that's in here, right? And then plus, and have to have my other quote, and then close bracket. Okay, let's console.log the selector to make sure that it looks right. Make sure you refresh the page after you make changes, because otherwise your changes won't be there. And now if I open this up, you can see that looks like a selector that'll work. Cool. There's actually an easier way to do this. This is actually, well, I'll show that to you later. Yeah, I'll show it to you later. So now I can do document.querySelector, and I'm looking for that selector that I already created, and then I just do .play, and let's see if that worked. Uh-oh, something's not working. Check it out. It's freaking out because it's not working for some reason. This is why the dev tools are really good, because they can tell you where all the problems are. I can see the exact line of code where this is happening. So I can come over here and say line 53, okay, something is wrong here. So let me const element equals that. And now I'll console.log the element, and we'll see what happens. Let's try that again. Okay. It got it. Oh, perfect. Yeah, it's getting the element right here, except, oh no, I made a mistake. Has data key for all of these divs too. So it's not actually grabbing the audio. I have to be more specific with my selector. So I'll just call this the generic selector, and then I'll say const audio selector equals audio. If you've done CSS, you know that you can put the name of the element in front and then put a more specific selector afterwards. So I can do that. Now, change this to my audio selector. And actually, I still want to do this because sometimes, is this going over your head? I'm sorry if this is totally going over your head. The good news is, I'm going to just pause for just a second. The good news is you have this live stream that's going to be recorded. You can go back and watch it later. And this guy, Wes Boss, he made this video tutorial that does everything that I'm doing right now, except with him explaining it, and he explains it much better than I do. So definitely, I want you to just see what's possible with just a few lines of code, and then I want you to go in and do it yourself so that you can figure out how to do it. This is not so that you can learn JavaScript. This is so you can get excited about JavaScript and then dive into it more. So I'm going to go back to doing this really quick. I need to make sure that my element actually exists, because you notice that sometimes if I press U, for example, that's null. It doesn't actually find the element because there's no element with the key code for the letter U. So I'm going to put as conditional, if element does not, I can put the bang before equals. That says if it's not equal to null, then I can play my element. Otherwise, it just does nothing. So element dot play. And now, cool. Let me compare it to the way that he did it, just to make sure that I did it right. So let's see. He creates a function to play a sound. That's cool. He creates an array of all of the keys, and he adds event listeners to... Nope, that's different. So here's his key down. So on the key down, he just does this play sound function. So he just named his function. Grabs the audio here, doing basically the same thing I did, except he does it the fancy way that I didn't show you. But he'll explain how that works, so I'll let him do that. And then, oh, he sets the audio's current time to 0. So notice that if I just jam on the J key, it doesn't play it whenever I hit the key. It plays it as soon as the sound is done. So what he does is he has it go back to the very beginning of its time. So element.current time 0. If I do that, then I can just jam on this. That's cool. And then the rest of his code adds this playing class to these guys to make it so that it lights up. So I can demonstrate that really quick. If I come here in my DevTools and right here, add the class playing, then it highlights it like this. Makes it light up. So that's nice. So he has code for adding that class right here. He grabs that selector using the same query selector method that I showed you before, but grabbing the div instead of the audio. And then he adds that class to the key, and then down here he just adds something that gets rid of the class when it's done lighting up. So if I pull that up again, finished one. Oh, let me do that right. Oh, I broke it. J's broken, but everything else is working. So that just makes it so that when it's done playing the sound, it goes away. So I could continue adding that, but we're basically at time. So before we end, what questions do you have? Cool. Let me wrap up with just a little bit more. Go back to here. So there's a lot more that you can do to learn JavaScript. This right here is the thing that we did today with this these simple tutorials and stuff. Right here's a more in-depth tutorial that goes through several things with better, longer explanations. Got the JavaScript 30, which has those 30 different things. I would encourage you to definitely do that, but get a little bit of experience with JavaScript first, doing some simple things before diving into that. Then again, it could be really fun to dive into that because he does explain all the things that he's doing and how it works in these videos. So it could be a really great way to dive into that. And then I made this thing called the WebDev Guild, which has just a bunch of basic things that step you through different parts of JavaScript with a whole bunch of links for how you can learn cool different things. So check out that. It's pretty cool. I like it at least. There's one more thing that I found. It's this website called Scrimba. And I have no idea where this came from. I literally found it today. But they've got all of these really cool, it looks like free tutorials about all these things. And one of them is JavaScript, and then they have another for ES6, which is, again, the next generation, the next level of JavaScript. And I can jump in here and look at any of these things for learning JavaScript. So yeah, let's learn how to do loops in JavaScript. That's not something that I taught you. Cool thing about this...
Now let's say that we wanted to iterate through up to the number 0 to 5 to add where the I plus
jump ahead.
Exits out.
And so here he does his thing, but then the cool thing about this is I can come in here and it's a real code editor that I can come in and play around with. So I can do like +1. And then I don't know how to execute this actually. I don't know what button to click. Oh, nope. Yep, nope, that didn't do it. Wait, +10. Yeah, I have no idea how to make this actually run my code. Maybe if I do that. There we go. Hey. So that's really cool. He does this video tutorial where he explains all the stuff with the code, and you can follow along with that. But then you can go in and change things around all you want. So that's pretty cool. Again, that's Scrimba. I'll post that link on the IS Academy Slack channel. Yeah, so thanks for coming, guys. And if you have any questions afterwards, feel free to come on up. That's all. I'm done. Bye. Yeah, thank you for your class.